Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Hello, Miraculous Ladybug and Cat Noir fans. Welcome to my Season 1, Episode 3 review of Miraculous Ladybug and Cat Noir. So last time I continued my playthrough of Spider-Man, the 2018 video game, with the release of Part 8 of my Let's Play. And today I'll be covering Season 1, Episode 3 of Miraculous Ladybug and Cat Noir, titled The Pharaoh, which was released on October 21st, 2015 in France, and later aired in the US on January 10th, 2016. So, the short synopsis of the episode is, when a villain with the power of the Egyptian gods wants to sacrifice Alia, Ladybug and Cat Noir must fight an army of mummies to rescue her. So I'm not really sure how fans really feel about this episode. This isn't one that I hear talked about often. So, let's just cut to the chase and, let's take a look at the episode to see whether I think it is a good or bad episode of Miraculous Ladybug and Cat Noir. The episode begins with Marinette, who is watching Alia's new blog update. Alia is tracking the Ladybug when she passes by hanging onto a helicopter, dropping her history textbook in the process. Alia picks it up and identifies it as a 10th grade history textbook, thus announcing her belief that Ladybug's secret identity may be that of a student at their high school. Marinette panics since Alia will know something's up if she asks to borrow her history textbook, but Tiki tells her that what's done is done and that she can only keep looking ahead, and that if she wants to keep her identity a secret from Alia and everyone else, she has to go get the book back from Alia. Tiki then types on Marinette's computer and brings up a webpage about an exhibit at the Louvre on the pharaoh Tutankhamun. So Tiki urges Marinette to invite Alia to the museum and to have her to bring the book with her. Marinette is kind of skeptical about it, not sure if it will really help her situation, not understanding what King Tut has to really do with Ladybug, but Tiki promises that the trip will be worth it. So Marinette ends up telling Alia that she found something about Ladybug at the King Tut exhibit, so they go to the Louvre. And Alia excitedly talks about how close she is to finding out Ladybug's identity, as their school is really the only one that uses this history textbook, and there are only 43 girls in their grade, excluding herself. Marinette tries to exclude herself from the suspects list, but Alia points out that Marinette had to borrow her textbook yesterday, and a panicked Marinette makes the excuse that she'd forgotten her own book at home, and that Alia knows how she's, always losing and forgetting things. So Alia just laughs and says she was only teasing Marinette, and that Marinette will be off her suspects list when she brings her book to school. I'm not really sure what, Alia's how she's going to conduct this investigation, but, we'll never know since she'll never find out. But as the girls reach the King Tut exhibit, a young man shoves past them and drops a bunch of papers and a necklace, which thankfully wasn't broken. He introduces himself as Julio Kudel, and he's their classmate Alex's older brother, before he goes to run off and greet his father, Mr. Alam Kudel. And with shrugging at his odd behavior, Alia turns back to Marinette and asks why she brought her here and what this has to do with Ladybug. Marinette tries to stall Alia, and Tiki points out to Marinette there's a papyrus scroll on the wall in the corner. But unfortunately, the scroll is covered in hieroglyphics without a translation. So Marinette has to try and find something that's relevant to Ladybug before Alia loses interest and knows that Marinette is either stalling or hiding something or wasting her time. So Marinette kind of tries to find something that's relevant to Ladybug, obviously, for Alia loses interest. And we cut into Adrian's room, where Adrian is watching the Lady blog, specifically the video of Alia finding the history textbook. And he too wonders, basically, if Ladybug goes to the same school as him. And Plague doesn't, understand why humans crush on each other instead of just eating cheese. And Adrian replies very, humorously that girls smell better than cheese, much to Plague's annoyance. And then, of course, meanwhile, we cut back to Jalil and Mr. Kubdel, who join Marinette and Alia in front of the scroll as Jalil explains the images on the scroll. So he identifies the man holding the scepter as the pharaoh Tutankhamun, and the woman next to him as Princess Nefertiti with 100 mummies surrounding them. The princess basically died before the pharaoh did and became the sun god Ra's wife in the afterlife. And Mr. Kubdel remarks that he already knows all this since he pretty much organized the exhibit, but Jalil claims to have deciphered the hieroglyphics, theorizing that the images on the scroll depict a resurrection ceremony in which the pharaoh tried to bring his princess back from the afterlife, and that the scroll contains a spell to bring people back from the dead. Pretty cool, I might add, and pretty interesting. And Marinette remarks while this is going on that, like Alia, Jalil is prone to jumping to conclusions. Of course, Alia mocks her about it, saying, you may think that I'm jumping the gun, but you'll see, I'll prove it. And likewise, Mr. Kubdel is unconvinced and cautions Jalil that anything written in the scroll is basically a legend and cannot be interpreted so literally. But Jalil insists that he is right and suggests proving his theory by using the pharaoh's scepter on display nearby and reading a spell from the scroll. But having lost his patience, Mr. Kubdel yells at Jalil for treating the scepter like a toy instead of a priceless historical artifact. And he leaves, telling Jalil to stop with his wild theories and start focusing on the real world, which it is the real world. I don't know what he's talking about. I'm assuming he means that, his theory is a bunch of bogus and that there's no such thing as, bringing somebody back from the dead. But you never know. There's stuff beyond our control that we could figure out. I like how he won't believe that, but, he's got 2 superheroes in his fucking town. So, clearly there's stuff that maybe isn't too realistic. Or at least in his mind, anyways. But anyway, that, of course, makes Jalil upset, and in his lair, Hawkmoth senses Jalil's disappointment and frustration that he can't do the spell, and he sends an Akuma on his way. So while Marinette stalls, Alia grows bored and takes the book out of her bag. Before she can open it, Marinette jumps in and puts the book away, insisting that she's found something about Ladybug. Outside the museum, the Akuma finds Jalil and lands on the pendant around his neck, transforming him into the pharaoh and giving him the ability to harness the power of the ancient Egyptian gods. Hawkmoth tells him that he will give him the power of the ancient Egyptian gods and let him do the spell if he gets Ladybug and Cat Noir's Miraculous. He agrees, and he transforms. He transforms into Thoth, the pharaoh, who creates bubbles and traps several museum visitors and security guards inside, slowing down their perception of time. So they're basically trapped in time bubbles and can't get out. And Alia and Marinette duck behind some displays, with the history textbook falling out of Alia's hands in the process. And Alia begins to live stream everything with her cell phone, while Marinette sneaks off and transforms into Ladybug. And of course, back at home, Adrian is watching Alia's feed. So of course, now that he's known, he's going to transform into Cat Noir when he sees the Pharaoh stealing the scroll and the scepter. So Ladybug dives into the Egyptian exhibit room as the museum's security doors come down, trapping her. The Pharaoh also with the Pharaoh and Alia. So she tries to fight the Pharaoh, but he grabs her yo-yo and swings her into a wall. He then transforms into Sigmet and uses his enhanced strength to pull apart the bars of the security door. Of course, Cat Noir eventually arrives on the scene, but the Pharaoh easily defeats him by throwing him into a sarcophagus. He then notices Alia hiding behind the display and kidnaps her, taking the scroll and scepter and pulling the bars back in place behind him. Ladybug and Cat Noir escape the room by using Cat Noir's cataclysm on the bars, and Cat Noir goes to recharge his Miraculous. So Ladybug uses her yo-yo to access the Ladybug, where Alia is live streaming her abduction, so she can find her. Outside the museum, the Pharaoh uses Anubis' powers and transforms all the bystanders into mummies. And Alia begins to question, him and asks, what's going on with him and, what's his plan, all that crap. And he basically explains that he needs 100 mummies and a sacrifice to resurrect his princess. He reveals that he plans to exchange the princess's soul for Alia's to appease the sun god, Ra. And of course, Alia is, surprised by this, but obviously he didn't kidnap you for nothing. He obviously was going to do something with you. So hearing this, Ladybug runs to rescue Alia, but accidentally gets trapped in one of the time-warping bubbles, which creates a pretty funny scene of Ladybug talking slowly, moving slowly, and it's pretty entertaining scene, I'll say that. Cat Noir, of course, finally returns after Plague, takes his sweet-ass time with his cheese. And of course, Adrian's had enough of that bullshit, so he transforms back into Cat Noir. And he runs and pops the bubble that Ladybug is trapped in. And they run to the roof to witness the resurrection ceremony in the courtyard. So Alia, who's still being held hostage, notices a figure in a spotted dress on the scroll who seems to be swinging a yo-yo. So when she questions the Pharaoh about it, he explains that the goddess on the scroll is, guess who? Ladybug, who had thwarted the original Pharaoh's resurrection ceremony 5,000 years ago. That's pretty cool. Insisting that the fact that there were other Ladybug and Cat Noirs doesn't surprise me, but it's cool to know that there was a Ladybug even that long ago. And the Pharaoh recites the spell, and a beam of energy shoots up from the Louvre pyramid, opening a portal in the sky. So the mummies grab Alia and begin carrying her toward the pyramid. But of course, Cat Noir distracts them, while Ladybug swings in on her yo-yo and carries Alia to safety on a nearby rooftop. With Alia's help, Ladybug realizes that the Akuma must be in his necklace. However, the Pharaoh transforms into Horus and flies up and captures Alia again, dropping her onto the beam on top of the pyramid to be transported into the portal. The mummies attack Cat Noir, but he and Ladybug trap them in a bus, which is a pretty hilarious scene.
What the?
Cat Noir! This way!
After that fun scene, Ladybug then ties her yo-yo around the Pharaoh and manages to grab the necklace from around his neck when he's flying. It falls to the ground, but the Pharaoh retrieves it before she or Cat Noir can. Just as Alia is about to disappear into the portal, Ladybug uses her lucky charm, and what does she summon this time? a ladybug costume. Wow, 3 episodes in, we already have those. Okay. And she spots the pair of earrings that come with the costume. Wow, this costume is pretty authentic. So let's see what she does with it.
Lucky Charm! A ladybug outfit?
That's our last hope.
So after that funny Lucky Charm scene, and she then bargains with the Pharaoh, offering herself as a sacrifice in Alia's place, with the reasoning that the Pharaoh can finally have his revenge on Ladybug for stopping him the first time 5,000 years ago. Of course, that wasn't Marinette, obviously, but, you know, Pharaoh doesn't know that, so any revenge is good revenge for him. The Pharaoh agrees, and he releases Alia, placing Ladybug on the beam to the portal instead. The Pharaoh holds out his hand for Ladybug to give her her Miraculous. But she grabs his necklace and throws the toy earrings from the Ladybug costume to the ground, telling him to go fetch it. When he is distracted by the decoy, Ladybug destroys the necklace and catches the Akuma. After that, she purifies the Akuma, and with the help of her Lucky Charm, Ladybug then returns everything back to normal. And the day is saved, and we get a nice little celebratory pound-it from our duo. After that, the Pharaoh transforms back into Jalil, and Ladybug returns Alia's phone to her, and Alia asks how old she is. So, with Marinette having the perfect opportunity to throw her off her trail, Ladybug, of course, replies with this.
I still gotta ask, how old are you really? Much older than a high school student, that's for sure.
Cat Noir then asks Alia if she wants to know how old he is. But Alia replies that...
Don't you want to know how old I am?
In a sec, looks like I'll be able to tell for myself.
And this response is referring to him about to transform back into Adrian. So Cat Noir looks at his ring and runs off, with Alia giggling about it. And when Alia wanders back into the museum to the King Tut exhibit, Marinette makes the excuse that she was turned into a mummy, which is a pretty good excuse. And I like seeing Marinette, throwing off to Alia, what happened to her. It's pretty cool that it feels like this is the first time Marinette's had to really try to hide her identity and try to make excuses of where she's been when her and Ladybug are in the same place. And Alia is happy to have learned that Ladybug is 5,000 years old, but she's confused because the history book in her bag has disappeared. And of course, that's as Alia is searching for the book, Marinette keeps walking and giggling to herself, pretty much implying that Marinette got what she wanted, got the book back, and threw her off to her being older than she is as Ladybug. So later that night, Tiki explains that she is much older than 5,000 years, and that there has always been a Ladybug superhero, and Tiki is the Kwami who has watched over every Ladybug since the beginning. So obviously this would hold true to every Kwami who has ever had an owner, which is pretty cool. The fact that they've been around pretty much since the beginning of time is incredible and amazing. And Marinette wonders if the other Ladybugs were as klutzy as herself. She feels, she's kind of down on herself, feeling like maybe she's, the weakest Ladybug out of all of them. But of course, Tiki gives a nice response, saying that every Ladybug is different. And she tells Marinette, her good qualities. That Marinette is surprising, she's unpredictable, endearing, talented, a quick learner, and the cutest Ladybug. And I have to agree. Marinette is a sweet girl, and she, and I always root for her to, save the day and get what she wants. And the episode ends with Tiki telling Marinette to get some sleep because she has a history test tomorrow. And Marinette pretty much quips saying that at least her test is about H and H. I'm going to give Season 1, Episode 3 of Miraculous Ladybug and Cat Noir 3 stars out of 5. So, since this is a 3-star episode, it doesn't really matter whether I start with positives and negatives, so I will start off with the negatives first. So, my first negative would be is that I find that this episode did not give enough screen time to Adrian or any sort of subplot like the last one. And I know, like, probably for some people that may not be a big deal, but Adrian is, like, one of my favorite characters in the show, so obviously I want to see him have a bit of story in the episode. If he had, he's barely in this episode, at all. Like, it's mostly Cat Noir. Like, Adrian doesn't really appear, he has no subplot or screen time, and that kind of sucks, because I like when both the characters have some good subplots and a good amount of screen time. But Adrian just didn't have that in the episode, and I just like to see him as both himself and as Cat Noir in an episode. It's just nice when you get to see those him balance those two different lives, and see what kind of subplot is going on in his normal life, and when he's what happens when he changes into Cat Noir. The second negative would be Hawkmoth. Now, the thing with Hawkmoth is that he doesn't have much of a presence in this episode, isn't it? There's lacking some screen time. I love Hawkmoth, and I know in Season 1 people have probably said, well, Hawkmoth's the one who pulls the strings, so why would screen time be your complaint when he doesn't really appear much in the season? Well, this is what I mean when I say, like, when I have a negative about Hawkmoth not getting enough of a presence or screen time. What I mean is that basically, one, I want Hawkmoth to have chemistry with the bad guy that he's akumatizing with. I want them to have, like, kind of like how Ladybug and Cat Noir have a bit of a partnership, and they always work together. I want Hawkmoth to, have that temporary partnership with every villain. And maybe he's not going to get along with every villain, but that's not what I mean. I mean, like, just any sort of chemistry, whether it be they hate each other, or they get along well, or somewhere in the middle. I don't know, just something to go along with it, because Hawkmoth does not really interact with the Pharaoh at all, and he doesn't really say much. He doesn't really give a plan to the Pharaoh of what to do. He doesn't ask the Pharaoh to get to get the Miraculous as much like he did with Stormy Weather and with Bubbler. So I feel like that's kind of a bit of a negative. But also, I just want him to have a bit more energy and a bit, some good moments. It doesn't have to be high energy. Like, I don't want him, like, getting angry all the time at him losing. I just want to see some range of emotions, whether that be some humorous moments from Hawkmoth, or some angry moments, or some happy moments. Anything. Like, just, Hawkmoth, I just like to have a bit of personality, like, even if he is pulling the strings. I don't think I'm asking too much when I want him to have a bit of personality and a bit of chemistry with the villain, and, when he's in his lair doing, cocoonizing people and waiting for them to get the Miraculous. I believe the final negative would be the Pharaoh's motivation and identity. The identity of the Pharaoh, Jaleel, is not good. And that's basically because we haven't really seen much Jaleel in many episodes. I mean, sure, you could argue, well, Stormy Weather we didn't see her much in episode 1, so we didn't do much with her. And, in episode 2, we didn't see much of Nino beforehand, the episode before, so, But I think the thing with Stormy Weather and Nino is I can get behind their motivations, and I got enough of their character to where I could, I could feel for them. With Jaleel, I don't really know. I'm not really interested in his motivations. He basically just wants to, resurrect. He just wants to use the spell as like he wants to test his theory. Basically, he wants to test a theory of, that the spell that the pharaoh had of resurrecting his wife can work. He just wants to try it out. Like he doesn't. He's not mad at anybody. He's not trying to do something for noble for somebody else. He doesn't have any standout motivations. So it's just him, basically trying to bring a woman back to life by performing this ritual, and I just don't. I'm not invested in that. And and he looks cool as the pharaoh, but Jaleel just doesn't have much of a character, which I think just brings it down for me. If I wish there was just a better motivation and something to Jaleel's character that I can get behind, because in this episode I just don't get that, which is why that's kind of a huge part of the villain, is that I want to be able to get behind, understand why they're being akumatized, and get behind their character and know them better and see if I agree with their motivations or not. But even if I don't agree with them, if they're good, then that's fine. But that's really all I got for negatives, so I think it's about time we get into the positives of the episode. And I'll start with my first positive, which is Marinette's subplot. Here, how great is this? We get 2 good Marinette subplots. Even the first episode did it poorly, but 2 episodes in a row we've had good Marinette subplots. And Marinette's subplot in this one is trying to keep her identity a secret from Alia by getting the textbook back. And I like that. And I think this is the first episode where the identity of the superheroes, specifically Marinette as a Ladybug, is she kind of has to hide it. I'm a person that loves when the superheroes or superhero has to try and keep their hidden identity a secret, their other side. So it's really cool when Marinette has to try and keep her secret as Ladybug from her friend Alia. And I just think it's a nice subplot, and keeps me, and it's engaging and interesting. And I want to see where it goes. Obviously, Alia's not going to figure it out 3 episodes in. That'd be way too quick. And I'm sure people would say, like, oh, well, Marinette probably wrote her name in the textbook, so why didn't Alia just, see it there? I don't know. We don't know if Marinette wrote her name in the textbook. I mean, maybe she did, but maybe she didn't. I don't know. But it would have been, I don't know what Alia's investigation would have been like, but just the idea of Marinette trying to hide her identity was just a good enough subplot for me, so I found that engaging. The second positive is that I love the action between Ladybug, Cat Noir, and the Pharaoh, and this is mainly due to the fact that the Pharaoh has some very cool powers. He can change into different gods. One god, he can trap people in a time warping bubble. Another god, he can change them into mummies. Another one, he can, has strength. Another one, he has flight. And I think and that's basically, all of them. And it creates some unique action, because the Pharaoh doesn't just have one power. He has a variety of powers, which makes him not only powerful, but it keeps the action engaging. And yeah, I didn't really show any action scenes because there was not really a standout action scene. So while the action was good, there wasn't a huge action scene like the last 2 episodes that really stood out. But the action was still good. It's not a negative that there wasn't a standout one. It just means that there wasn't one that I found, good enough to show. But it was still good nonetheless, and I think, and I was engaged the whole time. They definitely made the fights really good, and I loved them. And it was just unique at battles between Ladybug and Cat Noir and the Pharaoh. And the final positive would be the humor. I gotta tell you, the humor of this episode is pretty good. And I think I even showed like 2 humorous moments in this episode from Cat Noir. And of course, Cat Noir is going to be the highlight when it comes to humor, because he's amazing when it comes to humor. Of course, we love what he does. But, man, this is humor off the charts in this episode. I mean, he's really funny in this episode. Even Marinette gets a few, nice, funny moments in this episode. So it was really... The humor was really good in this episode. Just the way he interacted with Ladybug in this episode was hilarious. They had some great, dialogue together. They had some great chemistry in this episode. Adrian and Plag had some nice humorous moments. Marinette and Tiki had some. Marinette and Alia had some. It was just humor galore in this episode, and I like that. I like Ladybug and Cat Noir may be like an action-oriented show, but it has some good humor, and that's what I love. So, props to them for the good humor. But overall, I would say that despite it having a lot of good stuff, I don't think I would recommend this episode. Now, that doesn't mean that I hate it. It doesn't mean that I think it's the worst episode of season 1 or the series. The reason I don't recommend it is because this isn't one that I tend to go back to. Despite it having a lot of good stuff, the negatives kind of push it a tiny bit towards, more towards the negative side rather than the positive side. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't have a lot of good stuff in it. And I do like a lot of the stuff in this episode. I just think there were some key stuff missing to make it really good and an episode that I can go back to. It just isn't one that I tend to go back to often. So you can form your own opinion on whether you would like this one or not. But personally, in my opinion, I would not recommend this episode. But that's just me. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the review. Please give it a like if you did. Comment down below your thoughts on the episode. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Are you somewhere in the middle like me? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to leave a comment and let me know. And subscribe for more Miraculous Ladybug and Cat Noir content like this, or if you're just interested in any of my other content. You can also follow me on Facebook, where I have polls for future videos, updates for both of my channels, and discussions about things we talk about on both my channels. And Twitch, where I hope to live stream in the future. In my next video, I will have a review of Treadstone, which will kick off my 2021-22 summer special. So this summer special, basically, I'm going to have 2 franchises that I'll be reviewing rather than 1. And the reason is that I missed out on last year's summer special, so I'm making that up by having, a combined summer special this year. So Treadstone will be first, and the other one will be King Kong. So if you're interested in that, be sure to be on the lookout and let me know, what you think of it. But thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, peace out.
In the daytime, I'm Marinette. Just a normal girl with a normal life. But there's something about me that no one knows yet, 'cause I have a secret. Miraculous, simply the best, up to the test with